The topic of dragon seeds have never really been brought up in a single main series book, let alone in Game of Thrones. It's explored fairly heavily in some of the Targaryen lore chapters in the World of Ice and Fire supplementary book, and dives even deeper in the more recent lore book solely about Targaryens called Fire and Blood. The term dragon seed sounds all fantastical, but it only really means a child born out of wedlock with one of the parents containing Targaryen blood. Calling themselves dragons is something the Targaryens often did because of their very close ties with the magical beasts. The seed part of the title is a given. Almost every single character in the story with the title of Dragonseed happened to be born on Dragonstone, the island the Targaryens first migrated to 400 years prior to the current events taking place. It's part of this family's tradition to marry within the family in order to keep the Targaryen blood running strong enough through their line, likely a magic thing. But the Targaryen lords ruling over Dragonstone prior to conquering the Seven Kingdoms did a lot of sleeping around. These guys were the last of the dragon lords who could tame a dragon. This gave them the presence of all-powerful gods even before crowning themselves as kings. Giving the family members all characteristics of almost inhuman beauty only added to their worship and desirability. The small folk of Dragonstone didn't stand a chance in the presence of a Targaryen. There's been a few notable dragon seeds, kicking things off with Orys Baratheon. He was King Aegon the Conqueror and his sister wives' half-brother that founded House Baratheon. But he was never given the opportunity to bond with a dragon, and his parentage almost kept a secret. It's surprising to see how willing Targaryens were with spreading the quote-unquote seed around, considering how dangerous that could mean for their family, or the entire realms even. Being half Targaryen will give you more than enough Valyrian magic running through their veins to bond with an available dragon. When the dragons were housed in the volcanic layers in Dragonstone, a bastard would only have to bravely approach one and make it his or hers. Obviously the Targaryen family wouldn't stand for it and call it theft, but bastards in the story have done crazier defying things towards their own family. In Westeros, there lives this super weird tradition of a lord's right to sleep with any of the small lord's brides during the wedding night. It's seen as a disgusting thing everywhere, except for on Dragonstone. Over here, it was still a privilege for both the husband, wife, and child that could have been born. While everywhere else, you would see instances where grooms were taking out their frustrations over the situation on their wives, which never ended well. I'm sure some of you history buffs will tell me if this actually went down in our real world. I wouldn't really be surprised. The Targaryen king, who I think was the best of them all, put an end to this tradition called the First Night, after his sister wife's pleas. She told him, "Even on Dragonstone, there are stories of men of mine own house, Targaryens, who have made free with the wives of fisherfolk and serving men, and sired children on them. Dragon seeds, they call them," Jaehaerys said with obvious reluctance. "It's not a thing to boast of, but it has happened, mayhaps more often than we would care to admit. Such children are cherished, though. Orys Baratheon himself was a dragon seed, a bastard brother to our grandsire. Whether he was conceived of a first night I cannot say, but Lord Aerion was his father. That was well known. Gifts were given. I knew such things happened hundreds of years ago, I confess it, but I never dreamed that the custom endured so strongly to this day. Mayhaps I did not want to know. I closed my eyes." It's through this dialogue that we even get the 100% confirmation of Orys Baratheon's parentage. Gifts were given refers to the Targaryen lords of the past, giving the envied newlywed wives of another man lavish gifts of gold and silk and land to the mother to celebrate the birth of a dragon seed. You can make up a bunch of theories of who you believe to be a suspected dragon seed, but the confirmed few make a full reveal during the Targaryen Civil War that went down 107 years in the past. We should see some, if not all, in the upcoming prequel House of the Dragon that's still in production. One in particular I hope will have a lot of screen time. Even with the first night ban, this tradition persisted in some places, and the princes, who were customarily given Dragonstone to rule over until it was their time to become king, still made more bastard babies. This habit of bearing children with the small folk does appear to slow down since ascending to royalty status. The only king really known for his unhealthy lust was Aegon IV, nicknamed Unworthy. He had 13 known bastards, but for some reason, they're never referred to as dragon seeds. I mean, half were legitimized and considered Targaryens later in life, but during their youth, they were just bastards. Maybe the title didn't matter as much, because dragons weren't in the picture during this time period. It had been a couple generations since the last dragon died. The time period where dragon seeds took the spotlight was 107 years before the start of the main story. These bastards living on Dragonstone were specifically asked to come forward and risk their lives to help out the very people who ignored them for most of their lives. The Targaryens were in desperate need of dragon riders that shared their blood, and they were out of options. The Targaryen family was split in two during a civil war amongst themselves over succession, with one side having all of the vacant dragons lairing in Dragonstone. Many came forward because of the added bonus of being granted lands, riches, and being knighted. One of the seeds was Silver Denys. He looked the part while claiming descendants from King Maegor the Cruel, but ended up getting his arm torn off by a wild dragon, and then eaten by another along with his sons immediately after. That's the risk these supposed seeds took. It's stated that Silver Denys had the look, but not all Valyrians, or part Valyrians, are dragon riders. They have to be Targaryen. He could have inherited his appearance from any random. The ability to bond with a dragon was only inherited by the 40 Dragonlord families that ruled over Valyria in the past, before it blew up. The Targaryens are the only surviving Dragonlords, while many still remain with the silver gold hair, pale skin, and purple eyes. A lot of those that came forward to try and tame a dragon weren't even part Targaryen at all, and they knew it, just judging from the vast number killed or severely burned, along with some named characters among the failures, who we know belong to another house, who were just seeking all the power that comes with being a dragon rider. Before were successful where many failed. A blacksmith's son with an unknown connection to the Targaryen family was able to bond with the massive dragon called Vermithor. His name was Hugh, a large man that started calling himself Hugh Hammer after becoming a dragon rider. The next seed from Dragonstone to get a dragon of his own was a man-at-arms for the castle here, named Ulf. After he tamed the dragon Silverwing, he started going by Ulf the White, for his pale white hair. This is where you see how spreading that dragon seed without consideration can go wrong. Both became problematic. Hugh power-hungry and violent, while Ulf also power-hungry but more drunk than violent. They added a lot of value at the beginning of the war, called the Dance of Dragons, because of how dominant dragons are. But when the two were offered just a little more by the opposing side of the Targaryens, they turned cloaks. They became known as the Two Betrayers. Even after switching sides, they aspired for more. Hugh Hammer made his intentions known that he wanted to crown himself as king. When these two were seen as dangerous liabilities, they were quickly taken out by assassins. After their actions, the other dragon seeds were all seen as ticking time bombs and labeled as traitors without even doing anything yet. Two of the other successful dragon riders had to escape to avoid punishment for a crime that they might or might not commit. 15-year-old Adam of Hull tamed the dragon Seasmoke and died proving his loyalty after these crazy accusations by fighting for his side in a wild dragon fight, even after his successful escape from capture. His parentage is a little messy, but a lot more detailed than the other Dragonseed. He's actually a bastard from House Velaryon, a close ally to the Targaryens, but his mother may have lied about the father. As children, Adam and his younger brother Alan were known as Dragonseeds just by their Valyrian looks. House Velaryon is also a house that migrated from Valyria, but they were on Westeros even before the Targaryens, though they aren't naturally dragon riders, without a mix of Targaryen blood, since they weren't one of the ruling Dragonlord families back in the day. Adam and Alan's mother, Merilda of Hull, kept the father's identity a secret up until their attempt to become dragon riders. Yeah, even the younger brother Alan tried, but he failed. He entered one of the wild vacant dragon's lairs and was instantly met with dragonfire, setting his cloak to flames. Older bro came to the rescue and put out the fires while his bonded dragon Seasmoke drove off the wild one. Alan barely survived, walking away with only some burns, but would never try taming a dragon again after the traumatizing experience. Adam and Alan would be legitimized Velaryons during the war, and Alan would actually become the next lord to the family. He would disappear at sea one day, after living a much longer life than his brother. The same dragon that burned Alan and tore off Silver Denys' arm would eventually be tamed by the most interesting dragon seed, Nettles. Please let her be a main character in the prequel House of the Dragon. I've talked a lot about Nettles in the past. In fact, I made an entire video on the character. Out of all the Dragonseed attached to Dance of the Dragons lore, she's the only one written to appear as non-Targaryen as possible. I think George Martin characterized Nettles to just be an average common girl, brave enough to try and tame a dragon using her brain. The 16-year-old is described as a small brown-skinned girl with black hair and brown eyes. Not very Targaryen sounding, but not enough to rule her out yet. She's also described as being disreputable because of her foul mouth and filthy appearance. On Dragonstone, there lived 3 completely wild dragons who had never been ridden by a Targaryen and roamed free. One of these was a dragon named Sheepstealer. The dragon shared a similar appearance to its master, having mud-brown scales in comparison to her brown skin and dirty appearance. Nettles would feed its sheep every morning until it became comfortable with her. After doing this long enough, she became its master and joined the war. Her appearance, along with her approach to taming Sheepstealer, makes me believe she probably didn't have any Targaryen blood and just happened to earn a dragon's trust. After falsely being accused as a traitor with the rest of the Dragonseed, Nettles made her escape and was never seen again. It's said she flew off with Sheepstealer east towards the mountains of the Vale. Shortly after her disappearance, one of the Vale mountain clans began to apparently worship a fire witch and her dragon. So George Martin is pretty much telling us it was Nettles. There's a lot more minor details that didn't go over that hopefully makes it on the screen next year when the prequel airs. By then, Dragonseed will be a lot more of a common term thrown around.